Welcome students to this virtual class conducted by TMC Education Department. I am Vinod, a teacher from TMC school number 85. Now we are going to learn a poem Why, and this poem is from your English textbook of standard 8 and its unit number 8.1. Why? Now, before learning this poem, we are going to discuss some points, some questions are given in the very early part of this poem, and that is chit chat. There are so many questions in this poem. Those are asked by the little boy. But here in the chit chat, we are going to discuss only 5 questions. After discussing these questions, we may get the central idea of the poem very easily. Now, the very first point or the first question from this section, and that is, why do we ask questions? We, as a human being, are so curious about so many facts and things around us in the nature. And so, for knowing more and more about these facts, these things, we always ask questions. Now turn to the next question, and that is, do we get answer of all our questions? No, it is impossible to get the answers of all the questions. Sometimes we may get the answers of some questions, and sometimes we don't get the answers of other ones. And now the next point, third point is, how are questions useful in our life? This is a very important question, because when question arises in our mind, we start to search the answer of that particular question, and hence in this process we may get some information, some knowledge, and sometimes we get the solution of our problems also. In this way, the questions are very useful in our life. All of you know the story of a famous scientist, Newton. In his childhood, when Newton saw a fruit falling from the tree down on the ground, then a question starts in his mind. Why? Why this fruit? Why this fruit fell on the tree, fell from the tree on the ground, and why didn't it goes in upward direction? In this way, this is only one question of Newton. We get a science get a very important law of gravitational force of the earth. In this way, the questions develops the science, the questions develop our life, the questions develop our personality by critical thinking by ourselves. The next point is, do we think critically without questions? No, it is impossible to think critically without questions, because the questions leads us, the question itself leads us to think critically about the answer of that particular question. And so, without question, the critical thinking is impossible. Now, very simple and last point is, which WH words are used to frame the questions. You as a students from very lower standard, you always use these WH words, WH questions for writing the question, for framing the question. Now here I am going to just repeat these some WH words. Those are like why, what, whom, when, where, whose, etc. Now, many why questions of your childhood must have been answered by now. But you may want to know some of the whys about some facts or some things. You have to write such 5 questions whose answers we may not get yet. This question should be your own. For example, why the sun sets and rises? Why day and night happens? Why a rainbow appears in the sky? Why is the sky blue? Why the trees are so green? Now we are going to turn a poem. In this poem there is a little curious boy who always asks questions. The boy is little but he is so curious. Curious. What do you mean by curious? Curious means a person who want to know more and more about the thing or fact very vigorously. You want to know more and more about the new things. That person is known as a curious person. त्याला आपण मराठीमध्ये जिज्ञासू असंही म्हणतो. So that curious little boy always asks questions. Now, before starting this poem, I am going to read this poem. You have to listen carefully, and after then I will explain it for you. Why? I know a curious little boy who is always asking why. Why this, why that, why then, why now? Why not, why, by and by? He wants to know why wood should swim, why lead and marble sink, why stars should shine and wind should blow, and why we eat and drink. He wants to know what makes the clouds. He wants to know what makes the clouds and why they cross the sky, why sinks the sun behind the hills, and why the flowers die. He wants to know why wind should come. He wants to know why wind should come. He wants to know why wind should come from out the bellow's nose, why pop gun should go pop, and why ocean ebbs and flows. He wants to know why fish have gills, and why boys cannot fly, why steam comes from the kettle spout, and rain falls from the sky. He wants to know why coal should burn, and not a bit of stone, how seed gets in the apple core, and marrow in the bone. He wants to know why ice should melt, why spider eat the flies, why bees should sting, and why the east should make the dew to rise. Some of his whys are not too hard to answer if he'll try, but to other no one ever yet has found the reason why. In this week, this is very interesting poem about a little curious boy. In the first stanza, the poet says us that I know a little curious boy. I know a curious little boy who is always asking why. मला असा एक क्युरियस म्हणजे जिज्ञासू असा एक छोटा मुलगा माहीत आहे की जो सारखा प्रश्न विचारत असतो. वाय, वाय दिस, वाय दॅट, वाय देन, वाय नाव, वाय नॉट, वाय, बाय अँड बाय. तो प्रश्न विचारत असतो, हेच का आणि तेच का, नंतर का आणि आता का, का बरं नाही, का, का आणि का. तर असले प्रश्न हा जिज्ञासू मुलगा विचारतोय. Now in the second stanza, he wants to know why wood should swim while lead and marble sink. He wants to know why wood should swim and why leads and marble sink. तो विचारतोय की हे लाकूड का बरं पाण्यावर तरंगतं, and why the lead and marbles sink in the water. लीड धातू, शिसे, हे शिसे आणि मार्बल्स गोट्या या पाण्यामध्ये का बरं बुडतात, का बरं सिंक करतात, असा प्रश्न त्याला पडलेला आहे. Why stars should shine and wind should blow, and what we and why we eat and drink. त्याला प्रश्न आहे because he is a little curious boy. So he asks questions. Why stars should shine and wind should blow. Why stars should shine and wind should blow. And why we eat and drink. आकाशामध्ये हे तारे का बरं चमकतात. Why wind should blow in the nature. या निसर्गामध्ये वारा का बरं वाहतो. And why we eat and drink. आपण खातो आणि पितो का. असे बाळगोत प्रश्न त्याला या ठिकाणी पडलेले आहेत. So far he is very curious. Now next stanza, he wants to know what makes the clouds. He wants to know what makes the clouds and why they cross the sky. साधा प्रश्न आहे पण महत्वाचा वाटतो त्याला. हे ढग क्लाउड्स कशाच्या बरं बनलेले आहेत, कशापासून बरं हे तयार होतात, and why they cross the sky, आणि ते आकाशाच्या पलीकडे का बरं जातात, हे त्याला जाणून घ्यायचं आहे. आणि त्याला हे जाणून घ्यायचं आहे की हे जे ढग आहेत ते कशाचे बनलेले आहेत आणि ते आकाशाच्या पलीकडे का जातात. And why sinks the sun behind the hills and why the flowers die. Why sinks the sun behind the hill. Sink, a word sink is used here instead of a word sets, sunsets. सूर्य मावळतो या ठिकाणी शब्द घेतलाय सूर्य बुडतो. So he asks us why sinks the sun behind the hills and why the flowers die. हा सूर्य हा त्या टेकड्यांच्या पलीकडे, हिल्सच्या पलीकडे का बरं बुडतो, म्हणजे का बरं मावळतो, काय कारण असेल. आणि ही फुलं जी आहेत फ्लॉवर्स ही डाय का होतात, का बरं मरतात, का बरं ती कोमेजून जातात, असा त्याला प्रश्न पडलेला आहे. Now next stanza, he wants to know why wind should come from out the bellows nose. From out the bellows nose. A new word here, bellows. Bellows. Bellows means it's an apparatus which is used for blowing the air. तर अशा प्रकारचं एक साधन की ज्याच्यामधून हवा फुंकली जाते. In our regional language in Marathi we call it as भाता किंवा फुंकणी असे त्याला आपण म्हणू शकतो. So the boy asks why the wind comes from this bellows nose. या भात्याच्या नाकामधून हवा ही का बरं बाहेर जाते, हा वारा का बरं बाहेर येतो, का हवा फुंकली जाते याच्यामधून, असं त्याला विचारायचं आहे. आणि त्याला हे विचारायचं आहे ते पुढच्या ओळीत त्यांनी विचारलेलं आहे, why pop gun should go pop and why the ocean ebbs and flows. Two new words are here, pop guns. And the next one is ebbs, ocean ebbs and flows. Pop gun means a gun which are generally used by the children for playing. म्हणजे खेळण्यातली बंदूक, लहान मुलं जी वापरतात खेळण्यासाठी ती खेळण्यातली बंदूक. So the boy asked a question that why the pop gun should go pop. या पॉप गनचा खेळण्यातल्या बंदुकीचा फट असा आवाज का बरं होतो, का बरं ती असा आवाज करते. ही वॉन्ट्स टू नो, त्याला जाणून घ्यायचं आहे. आणि त्याला हे जाणून घ्यायचं आहे why the ocean ebbs and flows. Ebbs means a tide water when it moves away from the seashore or the land towards the sea or ocean. म्हणजे ओहोटीचं पाणी जेव्हा समुद्राच्या किनाऱ्यावरून ते आत समुद्राकडे वाहत जातं त्याला म्हटलेलं आहे एब्स. तर हे समुद्राचं पाणी ओहोटीच्या वेळेस समुद्रामध्ये का बरं वाहत जातं, why the ocean ebbs and flows. He wants to know because the boy is so curious. Next stanza. He wants to know why fish have gills and why boys cannot fly. Gills. Fish have gills. This is a very simple word. Gills means a respiratory organ of the fish. माशाचा श्वसनेंद्रिय ज्यामधून मासा श्वसन करतो त्या माशाच्या साधारण पराच्या या बाजूला डोळ्याच्या पाठीमागे अवयव असतो and it is called as gills. Gills असं त्याला आपण म्हणतो. The boy wants to know why the fish have gills. माशांना हे कल्ले, गिल्स म्हणजे कल्ले का असतात, माशांना हे कल्ले का असतात. and why the boys cannot fly. आणि मुलं ही का बरं उडू शकत नाहीत पक्ष्यांप्रमाणे, हे त्याला या ठिकाणी जाणून घ्यायचं आहे. Now next lines. Why steam comes from the kettle spout and rain falls from the sky. Kettle spout, a new word here. Kettle spout, a pipe joined to the kettle through which or it is used to pour a tea or a liquid. म्हणजेच त्या किटलीला, चहाच्या किटलीला जोडलेला पाईप ज्यामधून आपण चहा किंवा इतर द्रव्य ओततो. So the boy want to know why the steam comes from the kettle spout. या किटलीच्या स्पाउट मधून, त्या पाईप मधून ही जी वाफ आहे ती का बरं बाहेर येते, का ही वाफ बाहेर येत असेल असं त्याला वाटतं आणि म्हणून तो प्रश्न विचारतो. And his next question is that why the rain falls from the sky. आकाशामधून पाऊस हा का बरं पडतो हे त्याला जाणून घ्यायचं आहे. नाउ टर्न टू द नेक्स्ट स्टँजा. He wants to know why coal should burn and not a bit of stone. Coal. He wants to know why coal should burn. हा कोल का बरं बर्न होतो? कोळसा का बरं जळतो? का बरं जळत असेल तो? He wants to know. त्याचा प्रश्न आहे तो. And why not a bit of stone? दगडाचा तुकडा, छोटे छोटे दगडाचे तुकडे हे का बरं जळत नाही? कोळसा का बरं जळतो? असे बाळबोध प्रश्न त्याला पडलेले आहेत. And he wants to know its answers. These are his whys about so many facts and things he saw in the nature around him. Now next line. How seeds get in the apple core and marrow in the bone. Apple core. A new word is core. Core means the center of the fruit. Core means center of the fruit. Core means center of the fruit. The boy asks why there is a seed in the apple core. त्या सफरचंदाच्या आतमध्ये गाभ्यात आतल्या भागात त्या बिया का बरं असतात? त्या कुठून येतात? And why the marrow in the bone? Marrow. Marrow means fatty and soft substance in the cavities of the bone. Fatty and soft substance in the bone. It is known as marrow. मराठीत त्याला आपण मगज असंही म्हणतो. तर हा जो मगज आहे हा मॅरो आहे. Why it is situated in the cavities of the bone? We want to know. त्याला माहिती करून घ्यायचं आहे की या बोनमध्ये हाडांमध्ये हा मॅरो का बरं असतो. नाउ नेक्स्ट स्टँजा. He wants to know why ice should melt. Why spider eat the flies. He wants to know why ice should melt. हा बर्फ का बरं वितळत असेल? का बरं तो वितळतो? And why spider eat the flies. आणि हे स्पायडर जो आहे कोळी कीटक हा कोळी माशांना का बरं खातो? असाही प्रश्न त्याला पडलेला आहे. Why bees should sting and why the bees should make the dough to rise. Why bees should sting. त्या बीज ज्या आहेत मधमाशा त्या का बरं स्टिंग करतात? का बरं दंश करतात? का बरं आपल्याला चावतात, चावा घेतात? हे त्याला समजून घ्यायचं आहे. And why the yeast should make the dough to rise. Dough. Funny word here. Dough. Dough means the thick mixture of flour and water which is ready to be baked the bread in the oven. म्हणजेच आपण ज्याला कणकेचा गोळा म्हणतो की जो ब्रेड किंवा पाव बनवण्यासाठी तयार असतो तो कणकेचा गोळा मीन्स डो. And the boy wants to know when we mix the yeast in that dough why it gets rise, fluffy, why it gets bigger. त्याला जाणून घ्यायचं आहे की ईस्ट टाकल्यानंतर हा जो डो असतो ही जी कणिक असते कणकेचा गोळा तो का बरं फुलतो? का बरं फुगतो? मोठा होतो? फ्लफी होतो? असं त्याला जाणून घ्यायचं आहे. Now the next stanza and the last one. Some of his whys are not too hard to answer if you'll try. काय म्हटलेलं आहे? Some of his whys are not too hard. त्याचे काही प्रश्न असे आहेत त्यांनी विचारलेले की ते फारसे काही कठीण नाहीत. आणि आपण जर प्रयत्न केला तर त्याची उत्तर आपण देऊ शकतो. But although no one ever yet has found the reason why. पण अजूनही त्याचे काही वायज असे आहेत, काही प्रश्न असे आहेत की ज्याची उत्तरं सापडलेली नाहीत किंवा ती आपण देऊ शकत नाही. Now I hope all of you understand this poem very well, and also you may also enjoy this poem. Now we are going to turn workshop or your homework which is based on this poem. There are some activities in this workshop and you have to complete these activities. I am going to just guide you how to choose answers from the poem, how to choose words from the poem, and how to write them down. You have to solve this activity your own. Now, in the first activity, there are some words. These words are nouns. These list of words are nouns, and you have to choose the words related to those nouns, and those words are verbs. Means there is a pair of noun and verb, or you may call it as action words. This type of pairs is given in the poem, and you have to choose them and write them down. For example, sun shine, winds blow, sun sink, flowers die, ocean ebbs, fish swim, etc. You have to find out and write them down. Now, next activity is that from the second question, and it is very simple activity of rhyming words. All of you know the rhyming words. What are the rhyming words? Pair of rhyming words. We generally use this question for writing the answer. From every second and third line of each stanza, you may get a pair of rhyming words from each stanza. There are 7 rhyming words, and you have to choose them and write them down. For example, sing drink, nose flows, flies rise, stone bone, fly sky, sky why, etc. Now, in the third question, there is a figure of speech is used. What is figure of speech? Now, listen this line very carefully, and that is why this, why that, why then, why now, why not, why, by, and by. What you have noticed in this line, there is a word why is repeated so many times, and in this way, when one or more words are used so many times in one sentence, in the same sentence, then there is a figure of speech, and it is called repetition. This figure of speech is called repetition. You have to find such another 2 lines in which the figure of speech repetition is used from the poem, and you have to write them down. I think from the second stanza and fourth stanza, you may get your answer of this question. The next activity is that there is a web diagram. This diagram is very simple. You have to complete the questions asked by that little curious boy from the poem. His questions are so simple, and his questions starts with why, and you may write such 5 questions asked by that curious boy. For example, why the flowers die, why wind should blow, why stars should shine, why we eat and drink, why coal should burn, why the bee sting, why the spider eat the flies. In this way, there are so many questions. You have to choose only 5, write them down, and complete this activity. In the next question or next activity, there is pair activities used. In this question, the 2 diagrams are given there. You have to find out some words related the particular thing and write them down in the figure. Now the first one is words from the poem related to environment. Words related to environment. It is very simple. Wind. In the poem, so many things are given there which are related to the nature. Wind, sky, rain, clouds, sky. You can find out many more from the poem and complete this diagram. In the second diagram, you have to find out the words related to animals, fruits and insects. Related to fruits, animals and insects. Very simple. Bees, bee is insect, bee is sting, his work. Apple, fruit, its center is core, apple core. Next one, animals, fish, fish have gills, fish gills. In this way, you try to find out many more words and write them down and complete this figure also. These are some words given in the picture. These are found by me, but you have to find your own self. The next and the last activity, or last question is that word chain you have to complete. Word chain. In our regional language Marathi, we call it as अंताक्षरी. अंताक्षरी त्याला आपण म्हणतो. हे शब्द आपल्याला पूर्ण करायचे आहेत. You have to write the next word which start by the alphabet that ends the previous one. And in this way, you can write more and more words and complete this activity. Minimum, you have to write in each chain, you have to write minimum 4, 5 or 6 words and you have to complete this activity. Now I hope all of you understand this poem very well. You have enjoyed this poem also. Now, what is your work? What is your homework? First one, you have to read this poem carefully. You should recite this poem also for our oral work. And next one, you have to complete this workshop based on that poem because this is for your homework. And in this way, you have to complete this study of this poem so far as the poem is very interesting. Thank you very much.